Okay, the recording is started for the community meeting. I can't be on too long today, so I think maybe 20 minutes or so. And if you guys want to continue, but it doesn't look like there's too much to discuss right now. So we were just talking about the system with the GitHub and how to manage the revisions of the Arcos layers and governance, whatever else is discussed.
Yeah, I would like to ask. So we sent out the email, right? And we got one response. Is that right?
I think there was a second response as well.
Okay. And is there something we would need to consider for the current proposals?
What do you mean by different proposals?
I said if there was something that we need to consider, like valuable information that we need to think through and maybe integrate in our current proposals.
I think the last thing we were doing, we were working on the purpose, and we also touched on conflict resolution structure.
Yeah, I was just thinking before going further, looking at at these comments, if there was something interesting, and updating the proposals that we already created in case it's necessary before we continue creating new ones. We should make sure that the current ones are okay and solid, because then we could already go into voting for those, no? Because currently they're just drafts. So no one formally agreed on these proposals. Yeah, they're ready from our side, but they're in draft mode. So the next step would be, if there are no objections or critical improvements that someone requested, would be to go into the voting and make it something official. What do you think? What do you think about this?
Well, considering we had 2 responses, like normally there's like a waiting period of about a week or 2, and then hopefully we get more responses. But if there isn't, I guess, like, how do you want to vote? You want to vote within the meeting or on through the email on the wider audience?
Yeah, that is up to you guys. We can discuss it, and we can also write that down. I think that that will be anyways a point that we get to in the future. So if you want to do that today, maybe that would be an interesting thing as well. So how do you actually, what are the actual rules of voting? I think Boris has already a list somewhere, but it's somewhere, and maybe we can form it into a proposal, refine it, go through, clarify things like how, what you just asked, like should it be in a big meeting or should it be in an email? These things should be explicit, so it's very clear. So yeah, we could look into that then today. If there's nothing to change in the current proposals from these 2 comments, then I would suggest that.
Okay. I was also thinking at some point to, if we can define the membership a little bit further than what we have, and kind of consider adding the more favorable benefits, like define those, you know, what, like make it more interesting for people, make it more interesting of a product. And the other thing I was thinking is, no, actually, that's it. That's it. Just maybe the defining the membership state a little bit further. Proposing benefit.
What I want to jump in. So you said it's 1 or 2 weeks. Well, we gave a specific timeline. We said 14 days, I believe, in the email. I could look back just to verify. So that's specified in the email how long we give. The first response, which is kind of saying, so maybe that would be something to tackle before we move on to tackling other things, because that response states that, well, there are different properties and each property has its own bylaws. So, I linked to the FH1 bylaws, and the FH3 are almost identical. I did an analysis and it's like slight differentiations that are almost negligible. And I posted that as well in the new topic I made called bylaws. And
Nice.
so yeah, that's the two things to mention. So maybe we should consider, what do we do about each property having its own? So if we're gonna, okay, well, there are no objections from FH1 owners, FH2 owners, FH3 owners. Okay, this is an FH9 owner that said, well, this is each property, or no, FH10, right, or whatever. FH9 actually owner said, yeah, this is great, or whatever. So it's like a positive response. So there's no issue with that. So basically, FH9, FH10, whatever, can do whatever they want, and then we could just focus on 1, 2, and 3. But then I think that we should incorporate that into the Arcos, whatever, somehow, that it will say, well, this is covering these particular properties in this particular location. So it's not going to be confusing, and other people at FH10 are not going to be confused about that.
The thing is, we on our last meeting, we touched this, right? And the agreement was that the default FH1 bylaws are the default for all the properties. So FH3 actually defined their own and published them. But everybody else, like FH9, for example, it's FH1 bylaws. Those are the default bylaws that were voted in by consensus. So what's the issue? Like, what's the...
Yeah. So the issue that it doesn't state that anywhere for is saying that, well, FH1 property has these bylaws and then other people have other bylaws. So that's, yeah, so it should be
they
specified.
They have the FH1 default.
Specified. So FH10, a person from there says, look, this is your bylaws, but this is not our bylaws. And so they're just going to say...
It's written. It's in the documentation. That's defined already. It's defined that any property is free to do their own bylaws. Okay, but until they do it, it's FH1 default bylaws. That is written out.
I think you did post that that a community can establish. Yeah, there was something there. I have to look at it again to see what it is that it says there. But maybe what would be nice is to incorporate it into the Arcos layout. I posted the GitHub and the other page that kind of displays what's in the GitHub nicely, more human readable.
So kind of like outline in our thing that's the default. That's the de facto. I guess we don't have that definition.
Yeah, exactly. Because if somebody had a response saying, look, I'm an FH10 owner, well, she didn't say that, but we can look and see, okay, she's an FH10 owner, and she says, well, you specified FH1 bylaws, but these are, each individual property has their own kind of, right? So that means that email and the proposal...
That's I think she's asking that because they don't have their own. They have the FH1 bylaws.
There was no question mark as far as I can tell in her email. Again, I have to double check that email. But my understanding from that email, it's maybe a little bit vague, but she's kind of saying this is your FH1 bylaws and whatever doesn't kind of apply to her. I think that's kind of what she's getting at. I'm not totally sure.
Well, maybe you can ask her and then specify that all properties have FH1 as their default bylaws unless they defined their own and published them.
We could do a further question of what is she meant by that. Yeah, so let's see. She said, I don't have an issue as long as current ownership status remains unchanged. I don't have the desire to participate in calls regarding this, but feel it is important as you attach the FH1 bylaws here as reference to adopt this if necessary by property. So each would submit our bylaws separate in support or something, but it's a period, so it doesn't have a question mark after that. So that makes me think that she didn't mean it as a question. But yeah, we can follow up and ask what she meant by that. But either way, if you're saying these are the default, which I don't remember reading that it's default, I remember reading, but we can confirm that as well once we read it again, that it was like you can use it as a template, but so each one, once they have a community area, also the bylaws, they were applying specifically to a community area. So in this case, it's 1 hectare, or in some areas are actually even smaller than 1 hectare, but generally it's a small community area. It doesn't really apply outside of that, but yeah. Anyway, those are just some thoughts.
It's basically written out that if you're using the Fruit Haven branding, those are the bylaws that you live by. You understand? That's in the sovereignty doctrine. Those are the 3 documentations that we use to get it, along with the property contracts. So I don't know. I think it's like we're overthinking it. It's just the way it's written. It's like, okay, is there a question mark? There could be a question mark because it's written over something, you know. But like I wouldn't worry about this too much. It could be just clarified. I even outlined and I posted in the community meetings chat the specific part where that is specified.
Yeah, I see your post.
Sovereignty doctrine.
Yeah, I'm reading it. So it says that once a community area has at least 1 resident Fruit Haven community member and 2 non-member granted residency, or 3 residents total, including at least 1 Fruit Haven community member, and once the community has a formally ratified set of written bylaws on display in the community area and available in the Fruit Haven web archives, it shall be recognized as a sovereign community area. So, okay, only once they have reached this point may they grant residency at Fruit Haven membership. At this point, FH members shall have no jurisdiction in terms of granting residency to said community area, and FH members shall receive jurisdiction over matter specifically relevant to day-to-day life and operations at said community area. So anyway, confusing, but it doesn't say necessarily that FH1 bylaws are default. I think that we shouldn't even assume that, because I didn't see it said it anywhere. I think we can just assume that anyone that doesn't want to participate, don't have bylaws, they can either take and adopt them, or maybe just make the new system like what we're working on, the Arcos.
Did you read both screenshots?
Not both. There's a second one above. It says sovereignty of properties. Aside from this document, there shall be no other formal binding between Fruithaven nominated properties. Any property should all the owners agree using the consensus method to the unanimity decision rule may shed the title of Fruithaven, and in doing so effectively leave the Fruithaven project. Oh yeah, so basically that's what Fruithaven 4 did. So we shed the Fruithaven name. They may still participate in interactions and trade between the different properties, so much as the other property owners and or community groups desire. Properties denominated Fruithaven and thus considering themselves to be part of the Fruithaven project shall be bound to the terms of this document, as shall be their inhabitants, trustees, community members, residents, volunteers, and all other class of participant, until at which point enforcement of one of the terms may violate the owner's sovereignty in terms of asking someone present on the property to leave due to legal risk or having the final say in decisions that significantly affect property value or legal risk. They're also confusing. Is this part of the, are these both from the bylaws or is one from the sovereignty document or?
Yeah, this is a sovereignty document. Both of them are from sovereignty document. So, like, I think it would be good to clarify address this whole thing, because we kind of addressed the bylaws, but we didn't really address this thing.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It would be nice to like, I ran out of credits on the AI that makes the modifications, but I could upload this document and let it put it into Arcos as well. And then it's like just pull the information that exists. So there's no proposals to be done. It's like what already exists at first. And then we go from there and see like, do we want to modify something, make new proposal? But yeah, what do you think about it, Stefan? If you have credits on your AI, you can try that. I don't know if he's still listening.
Yeah, I'm still there. I listened to everything. But I didn't understand quite the last part you said. What do you want to do with the bylaws once you've fed them into AI? What's your
there's
purpose?
a separate document separate from the bylaws. It's called the sovereignty document. It's another PDF. I don't know if you got a chance to see that. It's also somewhere on the website, I think. I sent it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So would be fun because what I did is when I had the credits, it's like on this AI thing, I uploaded this document, the bylaws, so we could also upload the sovereignty document and say, okay, find whatever's relevant and put it into the Arcos, GitHub thing. And it did, and it was fairly reasonable. Like we could see what exists, because this is just stuff that already exists, and plug it in there, and then we look at it and say, okay, does that make sense? Is it different? So there's no proposals to be made, and it's not even a draft. It's basically what we have already.
The only thing I would suggest is that we go through this step by step, and not let AI do all the work, because the result of doing that is that you might have a text, but no one knows about it. It's just there, AI generated it. Maybe you don't really understand it. Maybe it is not very clear. Maybe AI hallucinated somewhere. I think it's very important if we use AI to be very conscious about it and do it step by step and really check what it is generating, and make sure that everyone is there and understands it, and we actually discuss it, because this is the highest value what we're doing now, like being together and looking at it together.
Yeah. I'm not saying to just blindly do it. I'm saying the first step to do that, and then we can see, okay, what was plugged in, where does it go, and then kind of see, because obviously first of all, it's outdated. It's already more than 7 years old, right? So it's a very old document to begin with, and then other thing is, just there are many different people now. We want to see what's we can maybe make. The point is, this is existing, so this is what we have to begin with, and then go from there. But yeah, we have to observe what it adds and how it adds it, and if it's actually doing it correctly and accurately.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would suggest would be that we proceed how we're doing it at the moment. So we look at certain definitions from Arcos, and then we can use the sovereignty doctrine and also the bylaws to see what's already there for that specific definition. And then we look at it, we talk about it, and we proceed with the next one. That's how I would suggest. What do you think about that?
So we're gonna define our sovereignty doctrine, like whatever we have, sort of like updated. Not updated, but like understand it better.
And quickly, I just have to leave, but I'll be back in about 10 minutes, I think. That's all right.
Then it's us, Nick.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the process?
Yeah, sounds good. So like, what's up? We take the document and we'll go point by point, or should we try to get a point form out of it? What do you recommend we do?
Yeah, my recommendation would be to look at Arcos definitions and go through those one by one, starting with the ones that are most important, and then looking in our documents what we already have. So in the sovereignty document, in the bylaws, whatever is there, contract, and take that as a base to discuss it, to look at it. Because my experience with AI is if you do everything at once, it makes a lot of mistakes. It discourages us from even looking at it. We lose the overview. Yeah. So I wouldn't do that. I would go really step by step through the Arcos definitions.
Okay.
I also created a to-do list on the documents that we're all sharing on the Google Doc. And I summarized roughly what we were talking about now, what's now on the table. And I think it would be also a good idea to prioritize these things and then go and starting with the one that is most important at the moment.
Can you share your screen?
Of course. 1 second.
Nice.
Okay, now you should see it. So Boris mentioned the fragmentation of the bylaws and constitutions. That is an interesting topic. I mentioned the responses to the email that we sent out and the question if there are any things that should be integrated in the current proposals. And we talked also about the voting, how it should be defined, which process you want to use, and also making that something very formal in a proposal that can also be voted on. And you mentioned also making the membership itself more attractive. So we have these 4 points that I was listening from our conversation here. I could add another one with a strategy of how to continue defining proposals.
Defining. Yes, that one I'm still confused. Like meaning finding new proposals or?
Yeah. So if I understood correctly, Boris suggested to use the bylaws, start with the bylaws and the sovereignty doctrine, throw that into AI together with Arcos, and say create like all the Arcos definitions based on the bylaws and the doctrine, sovereignty doctrine. And I argued that this is probably not a really good way, because AI makes mistakes if it has big jobs like that, and you cannot really trust it. And you also lose that value of being together and discussing each as a separate proposal, you know? So this is that point. Do you understand?
Gotcha. Yes, gotcha.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so we have these five to-dos that I was noting now. And what do you think is the most important to look at the moment? Maybe
Let's
also considering the size. Yeah, maybe also considering the size of these things. Like this feels like a big thing. This looks like a very small thing. This sounds like a long discussion with ideas. This might be simpler. So maybe taking that into consideration, so we can maybe start with things that are important and quick. You know?
Well, I'm down to do the Arcos definitions and compare them to the sovereignty doctrine document.
Okay. But that would be this point, you mean? That would be just, talking about how we proceed. And maybe defining it.
Do we have that document somewhere? Do I need to open it?
Which document? Which document?
What do we open? What do we go with? The Arcos definitions or the sovereignty doctrine first? Or do we have to start by first?
Yeah, we need to define that. That's this topic. That's the to-do that I wrote down here. Strategy of defining of how to continue with the proposals. So we need to talk about it and find a clear direction of how we deal with it, because Boris had a different opinion than me in that way. So we might need to wait for Boris to come back, and then we can talk
What do
about
you think the challenge is?
Sorry? Say it again?
Where is the difference of opinion? What was there a difference of opinion?
Yeah, so as I said, Boris said we throw everything, Arcos and also the documents, into AI, and we let AI define everything that we need.
Okay, there is a circular phrasing. There's a paragraph in the document where it's a little bit circular. There's a lot of it's secondary to, which is in turn secondary to. There's a little bit of a logical conundrum there. We need to look into it manually first, I think.
Where?
In the sovereignty doctrine, in that document particularly. And do you have access to that, by the way?
Sorry?
Do you have access to that?
Yes, I have it.
I
just don't know if it's the sovereignty doctrine PDF or the version 3. I have these two. Like one without version, one with a version.
And they're different?
Yeah, but I'm not sure about how they are different. So one is from 2019 and the other one is from 2023.
Okay. So I think 2019 is the original one. I think that one was voted. The 2023, that one was I don't know who updated that. I don't know if there was consensus on that. Because the bylaws are also from 2018, and they were voted in.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's a paragraph in there that gives the definitions of how the document is to be used in conjunction with, and like it defines its importance. Like I find those definitions a bit confusing, and it would be cool to read them out loud and see, like, really understand what it means.
Okay. And where do you see that loophole?
My hands are full of jackfruit. I'm cleaning jackfruit, so I can't access it at the moment. But maybe if you can read it out loud.
I will not read the whole document now. Sorry.
Not the whole document. There's a specific paragraph. I think.
Okay. That's okay.
It's like a second or third paragraph from the top where it defines. And we'll take a look later.
Yeah. Is it about accepting new members or banishing people? Or is it about sovereignty of the community areas?
No. What else is there?
Sovereignty of properties? Initiation of the sovereign community area?
Okay, keep going.
The last one is ratification and jurisdiction.
Yeah, check that. Jurisdiction, yeah. Great.
Okay. Yeah, it's the last paragraph. This document is approved by current FH members with voting power using the consensus method, and the unanimity decision rule will apply to all Fruithaven properties and their community areas. It will overrule any competing clauses in community area bylaws. Any owners who buy into a Fruithaven property will also by default agree to this document before buying in.
Okay. So this is like kind of like a mutual agreement clause.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, okay.
Yeah, between all fragments. And it seems to sit on top of everything. So you cannot change it with bylaws or your mood. And we could also not change it basically with new proposals at the moment. I mean, we could change it and vote on it and create a new version of this document, basically.
Yeah. Okay. It must be like another point. This is like a short. This is just one paragraph in this area, in this point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is this docs? You know what? Let me wash my hands. I'm gonna open it real quick.
Yeah, in the version 3, it's a little bit longer.
Stefan, could you please link this document in the chat?
Yeah, which one would you like? Version 1 or 3? Version 1 I was reading just now.
Yeah, let's do version 1.
Okay. How do I open the chat again? Oh, here it is. No, I don't find the chat. Yeah, I will write it in the community meetings chat. Yeah,
Yeah,
I will
exactly,
throw it in there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, there it is.
So, accepting members. Sovereignty of properties. Okay, is that what you read?
No, I read the very last paragraph.
Okay. So, okay, there's this part here. Sovereignty of properties. Aside from this document, there shall be no other formal bindings between Fruithaven denominated properties. So denominated means titled, yes?
Sorry, where are you at the moment?
Number 4. Sovereignty of properties, number 4.
Okay. Yep.
So there's this specification here. Aside from this document, there shall be no other formal bindings between Fruithaven denominated properties. Okay, so that's anything that's titled Fruithaven.
Mm-hmm.
Any property, should all the owners agree using the consensus method and the unanimity decision rule, may shed the title of Fruithaven and in doing so effectively leave Fruithaven project. They may still participate in interactions and trade between the different properties so much as the other property owners and community groups desire. Okay, properties denominated Fruithaven and thus considering themselves to be part of the Fruithaven project shall be bound to the terms of this document, as shall be their inhabitants, trustees, community members, residents, volunteers, and all other class of participants, until at which point enforcement of one of the terms may violate the owner's sovereignty in terms of asking someone present on the property to leave due to legal risk or having the final say in the decision significantly affect property value or legal risk. Okay, I think we read this earlier, right? So this basically is properties denominated Fruithaven, okay, are bound by the terms of this document. So they agree to this whole, like the whole system that we have of trustees, community members, residents, volunteers, bylaws. All of this is specified here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of answers the previous question. It's too bad Boris is not here, but when he comes back, maybe remember to mention this. But yeah, so this would mean that the bylaws of FH1 are attributed to anything that's that has the title of Fruithaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There was a part that was a little bit circulatory. Man, maybe it's in the V3, but see the sovereignty of the community areas. There's also like specifications on members who are trained in the consensus decision-making method may have general voting power across the community. Specific community areas may waive the training requirement if they so desire and consent, and then community members who have not received the training will be allowed to vote only on things that affect primarily that specific community area. There's like a few things like this. Search of properties, food haven, community members. Can you please link me the number 3? Version 3. Thank you.
Okay, it's there.
Thank you. Hey, Nikos, how you doing?
Waiting for the meeting to start. Are we waiting for Boris?
Boris, he came and he left for a little bit, and we're kind of looking at our documentation here. Hey, yeah, that version 3, it has like a weird community vision. It's like almost looks like a joke.
You mean Fruit Heaven 3 by version 3?
No, the fruit. What we're looking at is the community sovereignty doctrine. It's linked the community meetings chat in the community meetings topic. So there's version 1 and version 3, and the version 3 looks like the beginning looks like a joke.
Okay. I'll have a look at it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it looks like it was a draft for another version, and the community vision was not finalized. So the person that created this or edited this document listed all the options that they saw in that moment.
Yeah, it's a draft. I see. It's someone's draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Best are the pros and cons of the number 5. They say pros, being part of the matrix, cons, being part of the matrix. Because you use ChatGPT in that option.
Yeah, I see. So this is not that's the draft version. Okay, so they're the same. Okay, so what would we do, Stefan? We take this document. I think we. What do we need to do with it other than? What do you suggest we prompt it? Or are you saying not to prompt it?
I would say we prompt it when we try to define something that Arcos defines, and we have a feeling that it might be already defined in a sovereignty doctrine. Then we use it as a base. That would be my suggestion.
Like we did before.
Exactly, continuing as before. Yeah, because I was also thinking in the beginning, I could write all your definitions with AI based on the documents you have and fill in where I think it would be good and present it to you, and we would be done in one meeting. And then we have maybe follow-up meetings and you all just nod or we make small changes. But I think at the end, you're losing the value of what this actually is, because you will not remember. You will not remember what was written here and there. How is the conflict resolution? Because you didn't write it. Writing it makes it to something you own, actually. And I think it's good to use AI for certain things, maybe clarifying some sentences, but the whole thing should be yours. You should create it. Because you will be the people that will try to live by it and to enforce it. So you need to know what it is and where to find things, how to change things, what exists. So this is the real value of it. It's not a piece of paper somewhere on a bookshelf, because this will not help you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this sovereignty doctrine, like what is it exactly? Nikos, do you guys have a sovereignty doctrine in Terra Frutis?
I don't remember seeing one. I don't think so.
Like what is like the purpose of that document? Like what? Like how is it different to? Like what function does it fulfill? Like how would it be defined in Arcos?
Maybe it kind of unites all the Fruit Heaven titles and 1, 2, 3 and all that. Maybe something to unite all. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, true. There is like mention of other sovereignties of areas, other community area sovereignties and properties as well. It does like specify what sovereignty is. What is that word, sovereignty? Sovereignty.
Sovereignty means that you're not dependent. You're sovereign. You are. You don't need outside decisions, outside resources, usually. But you can be sovereign in energy, for example. So you have your own energy production, or your food sovereign. You don't rely on outside food resources, so to say. But in that context, it means, I mean, here it speaks about sovereignty of community areas. That means, like, in how far are they sovereign? How much are they not depending on a central community area or a central decision-making area or something like that, you know? And there's also sovereignty of properties. It zooms basically in. So the number 2 is about how can a community area be independent from others. Yeah. And the next one is how can single properties in each area be independent from others? How can they be sovereign, basically? But it also mixes something in, which is about the banishing of inhabitants. So it says basically, yeah, you're sovereign. You can make your own decisions, but banishing inhabitants, I still want to somehow instruct you how to deal with it. That's how I understand it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, we were talking about this last time. I think we were when we got into conflict resolution scenarios. Remember, and we were like talking about like the different scenarios.
I cannot hear you anymore. Are you still there?
Hello.
Yeah, no, I can hear you again. But I need
Okay.
to leave, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But we can continue there next time. I would suggest that we next time start exactly with these to-do list points there that I noted down. These are all interesting topics, and we should think about which one of these are the highest priorities, and then go through them, or decide to pick them out, whatever. Okay.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you, Stefan.
And yeah,
Take
have
care.
a good day. Yeah, thank you too. Bye bye.
Bye.